Hey guys, and welcome to the 2022 QualityShot Tennis Awards. And I'm extremely privileged to have YouTube royalty on today. We've got Cam from Tennis Talk with Cam Williams, all the way from Australia. Cam, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, mate. How are you?
All good, all good. Thanks for being on. And Stephen from The Slice, all the way from Canada. So we've got the United Nations here today. Stephen, how are you doing?
Doing great. Ready to talk tennis.
Good, good. And Gill as well from the US, from Monday Match Analysis. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good to be on with all of you. Feels like a great reunion of tennis YouTube.
Exactly. It's where the tennis YouTube community comes together. Got UK, Canada, Australia, and the US, and we're just talking about Davis Cup because every one of those countries went pretty deep. But we're going to focus on the whole year and awards, and hopefully nail down some of the awards. So the first one is going to from the ATP side, so we're going to do all the ATP awards first, and then WTA as we've done in the past. So first one is ATP Grand Slam Match of the Year, so we can go around. If we go maybe Stephen, Gillen, and Cam first. So suggestions, obviously give me your thoughts as well. Stephen, have you got an idea of what you want it to be?
Yeah, thanks for the first shot. So I get no repeaters here, but mine was Alcaraz versus Sinner, U.S. Open, potentially some recency bias. But the reason I chose that was because two of the younger guys, obviously the young stars of our game, I thought the level was extremely high for how long and late it was. And yeah, it was just an amazing match. And I love the storylines of kind of people debating on how late it should go at the US Open. It was my favorite match of the Grand Slams for sure of the year. So, or not for sure, like there was a lot of good ones, but it was the top for me.
No recency bias. That's the one. That's match of the year. I feel pretty good about it. I was there. That's my potential bias. Best, so it was the best match I've ever seen in person, overtaking the 2009 US Open final when Del Potro beat Federer. It's just so rare that you have two players playing at an elite level for hours and hours on end, and there's so many twists and turns because they just can't separate themselves on the scoreboard. And when Sinner won that third set, I thought there was zero chance Alcaraz was winning the match. They were coming off of 5 setters in the previous match. It was like 1 a.m. It was physical, crazy points. I thought there's no way Carlitos is going to be able to claw his way back. He saves a match point in the 4th. He wins it in 5. It's my match of the year.
Yeah. See, I've gone different. I was going to pick that one. I was going to pick it up, but it's the one that happened last. It's probably the best 5-setter it's been, like the best 5-setter in the last 5-set, best 5-setter, right? Mm-hmm. I went the Australian Open final. I had to go different. Nadal, Medvedev, Rafa coming back from 2 sets to love. The history on the line. He breaks the record of Grand Slams. I mean, maybe biased because it was a huge match to watch as well. I don't know if Farzan, have you watched that one live?
Yes, yeah.
Now, yeah, one of the biggest matches YouTube-wise as well. Sure, Djokovic wasn't there, and maybe the field wouldn't have been there, but yeah, I have to go that. And maybe because I'm Australian, I'll go with an Australian Open match.
No, I'm the same. I've noted down a few here, but before I give mine, I think the Alcaraz Sinner one as well. Just a quick note on that. That was really impressive, not just because of the quality, but I thought going into it, there was so much intrigue about Sinner versus Alcaraz because he'd lost to Sinner twice before, very recently as well, right? Wimbledon, and then he lost on the clay in that little very short period on the clay. I think it wasn't Umag because he lost to Musetti, but the other clay court tournament, which I've forgotten. But
no, it was Umag.
Was it Umag? Okay,
yeah.
It was Umag, which he lost to Sinner. I know he lost to Musetti, another clay court one final as well. In consecutive weeks, Hamburg. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I was thinking going into that, it's really intriguing to see whether he can claw it back, or is Sinner just going to continue dominating that head-to-head throughout 2022? But he managed to claw it back really nicely. I went with Nadal versus Medvedev as well at the Australian Open, and there might be a little bit of bias because I'm a bit of a Rafa fan. I think everyone knows that. I'm happy to admit that, but I think it was more the fact that he came back from 2 sets to love down. I think it was a breakdown in the 3rd. He hadn't played since Roland Garros last year. He just played that Melbourne summer set the week before, which I think helped a lot, to be fair, because they were on the courts. But then if you think about the level of opposition he played Maxime Cressy in the final, no disrespect to him, no, fantastic player, but it's not the level of opposition he faced in the last few rounds at the Australian Open, and no one really gave him a hope. I mean, he'd only won it once before, had scar tissue from the finals in prior years as well. So I thought it was just an incredible victory and very unexpected. But I can see what Alcaraz Sinner. I've also got notes here, and I know a lot of people at the time when it was played were saying that Nadal versus Djokovic at Roland Garros was incredible. Although I reckon last year's one was maybe slightly better in terms of quality. And also shout outs to Kyrgios versus Medvedev at the US Open. I know that's probably a bit of a left field one, but the first set tiebreaker I thought was incredible on that one. And Kyrgios Tsitsipas just for the entertainment value, I think, more than anything, honestly. But I mean, I'm assuming you guys want to stick to your picks, right?
Look, Nadal Medvedev is definitely to my 1A, which is Alcaraz Sinner, is definitely the 1B. And I don't think any of the other matches you mentioned really hold a candle to the two at the top, to those two at the top. And yeah, there is something to be said for the fact that a lot of people were not watching Sinner Alcaraz because of the time zone and just how late it was played. I mean, even people in the US may have missed Alcaraz Sinner. That does kind of deduct points from it, because part of a tennis match is the experience of watching it with everybody else and social media and all of that. So I'll give you that a major final inherently has an advantage in terms of, match of the year, and which Nadal Medvedev was. Yeah,
the final always gives it that added prestige, doesn't it? Because I guess I'm the host, I'll give the executive vote and give it to Nadal Medvedev. But I think Alcaraz Sinner could easily have got it. So sorry, guys. Basically, Stephen and Gill, sorry.
Just the dictator of this group. I mean, do you want to argue? Okay, I guess it is a debate. It's like I don't think Medvedev and Nadal was a great super high level the entire match. Am I right, Gill? Like it was a fairly big letdown in my opinion from Medvedev's level, and that he dropped down into Nadal's category of play and became like this like weird nervy sludge match, which was epic and not going to take away. But to me, like, match, so you got to debate like quality match of the year was definitely Alcaraz Sinner. History was Nadal winning, but I actually have that match in another category for vote here, and you can probably take a guess.
Maybe we need to split it because it says Grand Slam match of the year, which probably is a bit ambiguous. So I think for best quality match, I think Alcaraz Sinner. For most prestigious match, if you want, or most monumental match, if you want, Medvedev Nadal. And I agree. I think
match of the year, it's just one category. I think it's my vote, and my strong opinion is that it's Alcaraz Sinner. We all know it. We all know it.
Oh, fair enough. We can go Alcaraz Sinner. I don't mind. I feel like I'm being bullied out of this, but it's fine. God!
One of Cam or Fabian has to give up for it to be the greatest. So if neither of you do, then it's a tie, I guess. I don't know.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm happy to concede on this one because
this is like that time where they couldn't finish the tournament in Melbourne in 2021. When they had to split the trophy. I think it was Contavate. Contavate had to split the title with someone.
They played. That was last year. They played the final on the Saturday, and then they just went, "You can both have a trophy." The two finalists win.
I didn't not even see that. That's insane.
That's ridiculous.
That's very 2021. But okay,
classic. No, I'm happy to go Alcaraz, and I feel like I need to hold my dictatorship powers for later on.
Well done,
I've swayed the judge. Canadian power.
Canadians are not known for that. On the first question, it's going to be
a long day.
Right. Okay. So ATP Match of the Year. So that's obviously excluding the Grand Slams. Cam, do you want to go first, and then we'll go back round to Gill and Stephen.
Yeah, this was tricky because I was going to pick an ATP Finals match or something that's happened, Paris, but I went Alcaraz Djokovic. It's hard to kind of remember way back in April or May, but looking at the score again and going with the guy who I think we all well, maybe not we all, but I think is number one in the world, and the guy who is number one in the world. And we got to see them back then. Alcaraz obviously was almost unbeatable until the French Open, and then when he lost his Zverev, everyone jumped off him. But at that time, it was like, Djokovic hadn't played, and Alcaraz was sort of on this run, and then they collided. He just beat Rafa as well. Alcaraz got the win. Maybe we didn't get the best of Djokovic then, but that's sort of, oh man, it was tough. There was probably like 5 I could have picked, but I went with that one just because that's probably a match that I want to see next year as well. Like that's
the Madrid semi, right? That's the Madrid semi.
Yeah, Madrid semi.
And then he beats Zverev in the final, which obviously was quite straightforward. But we don't actually have a category for best run. But I know, Gill, in your awards you did. And I think that's definitely, I think you gave it to him. Madrid is definitely the best run for me in terms of, excluding Grand Slam tournaments, the best tournament run of the year. I mean, incredible.
I did. I got a lot of comments saying, no, it's Runa in Paris. I got a lot of pushback.
Well, that's a good point.
Really close. Really close.
I stand by Madrid, and Cam, that's also my ATP. We can call it best of 3 match of the year. That was a 3-hour, 35-minute match. They were super, super even. It was also just a phenomenon. Like Carlos Alcaraz at the time was a phenomenon. A little bit of the shine is obviously not, that can't last forever. But at the time, it was a meteorite, and he was playing with a fearlessness and a freedom that is really hard to bottle. And, going up against Djokovic, who had just finally kind of started to look like himself, because, the prior 3 tournaments, he was rusty, and there was kind of a feeling, okay, Novak's back here, and this could be a massive turnaround in Novak's season. It had to wait until Rome. But instead it was this really the highest moment for Alcaraz in this kind of marker 2022 year, because he had just beaten Nadal the day before, becomes the first ever man to beat Nadal and Djokovic back-to-back in a clay tournament.
Yeah, we'll make it 3 for 3. Like it was the same for me. Alcaraz defeating Djokovic, Madrid semifinal. It was an amazing time. Like Gill said, like he was an absolute phenom at that time. It was like the hype train is as hot or as big or as heavy as it's been for any player I've seen in my time covering tennis. And it's really cool that, it materialized into, number 1 in the world and slam champion in 2022, which is also crazy. But that match was amazing to me because I watched it in a British pub in Rome, watching that match, and it was like, I was there with my wife, and I was like, okay, we'll be here like another half hour, whatever, like we'll get another beer, and then it kept being like another half hour, another beer, and it was just like awesome. So, and that match was amazing to me because I think we saw Alcaraz get, we were always like, where is his level? Like he's this amazing prospect. He played Djokovic, and he showed that, he's just as athletic as Djokovic is. He's younger, in my opinion, quicker, a little bit more explosive now. And he can hang with him absolutely in these type of super all-court tennis that Djokovic is now obviously, the top at. So, that match made me wanting, obviously Djokovic I think was a little bit rusty, but, Alcaraz was 18. So it just made me want more, right? And it's still crazy that they've only played once. I can't wait till their next one. And yeah, that was the match of the year for me. How long it went, how many ups and downs there was like Djokovic going at the crowd, like kind of trying to pull like dip into the US Open 2010 vibes where he's like kind of just nodding at the crowd, but then Alcaraz coming back to keep that run going was absolutely crazy. So yeah, that was my match of the year as well for ATP.
You guys have made it really easy for me. Or maybe not easy. Maybe I was going to go for that. But no, I think Alcaraz Djokovic, definitely the match of the year. And thank you, Stephen, for the comparisons between Alcaraz and Djokovic. I've now lost 10 subscribers. But I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
I'm not saying he plays like him. I'm saying he's like
quicker.
an
He's more
equal match.
explosive. No, I'm just
you lose more if you put him up with Rafa.
Yeah. No, fantastic match though. It really was. I thought the quality is what really made it stand out. And I honorable mentions, and I think again maybe recency bias because of the Rune Djokovic Paris Masters final, just because to beat one of the big 3 in a final, I think the way that he did for the first time is very, very rare. So that's what really stood out to me. And the quality was still very good in that final, and I thought Rune was very good. But definitely, I mean, Alcaraz Djokovic, that Madrid match. I know Cam, you would have done the commentary for it as well. Live, and what a match. And I'm looking forward to watching the highlights, to be honest, in the off season or even the whole match, to be honest with you, because it was an incredible watch, and it's a shame we didn't get to see it more than once this year. But I'm sure we'll see it plenty of more times in 2023. So looking forward to that. Leads us on nicely on to ATP most exciting tournament of the year. Gill, do you want to go first? You haven't gone first. You're Gill, Stephen, and Cam.
No, I don't really want to go first. I think this is a really tough one this year, and it just felt like the tour was never at full strength at any point. I enjoyed Wimbledon. You can't pick Wimbledon. You have too many guys missing. And that's true for so many of these events. I'm kind of tempted to say Madrid. I thought that was super fun. There was a lot of criticism about the tournament schedule, which arguably cooked Alexander Zverev for the final, and we got a clunker of a final where Alcaraz really kind of wiped the floor with him. So that wasn't ideal. But ultimately, I think the most thrilling part of this 2022 season, not to kind of repeat content here, was Alcaraz's explosion. And Madrid was, again, kind of the peak of that. So I'm tempted to go with Madrid because we got a great Alcaraz-Nadal match. We got a great Alcaraz-Djokovic match. And it just felt like everyone was at least in the mix, which you really couldn't say for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steven, do you want to go?
Okay. Yeah, I thought you said me. Is that right? Yeah, mine was, to me, like looking at most exciting, I always get most excited for the slams, I think, because like slams would be counted as ATP, right? This is all of them. Okay. So yeah, I picked, like Gill said, you could almost ask like, what was the most or the least asterisk tournament of the year? Like, I don't believe in any asterisks to make it clear, but every there was arguments about every tournament. The only one that the slams that I don't remember being any big ones was the French Open. So to me, that was we had Nadal and Djokovic both there, and it seemed like everyone was there. Obviously, not everyone's favorite surface, but I thought when you got to I just pulled up the quarterfinals there. We had Djokovic, Nadal, Zverev, Alcaraz, Rune, Ruud, and then Rublev, Cilic. Pretty strong quarterfinals, and then we had Djokovic, Nadal repeat, Zverev beating Alcaraz. We had the Casper Ruud, Holger Rune drama, which was funny. And yeah, like I was not sure what was going to happen with that tournament. I think that's what always makes it more exciting. Like Wimbledon was pretty clear to me that Djokovic was going to win unless something big happened. Australian Open, I didn't know. US Open, I didn't know as much. But the French Open was really, I felt like there was literally 4 or 5 or 6, which is a high number for the ATP in the last 5 years of guys who could reasonably win the tournament at the beginning. So that makes it exciting for me. And then obviously Nadal showed why he's the absolute king of clay and won it again. But it was just, to me, it was the most exciting slam, therefore the most exciting tournament.
Nice. See, I went different. I went US Open, but for a different reason. So because I did the whole thing of going through who didn't play, who played. Like French Open was my first pick. I thought, okay, well, everyone was there except for Kyrgios, but he probably wouldn't have been much of a factor, I guess, on clay anyway, because he hasn't played for so long there. But I went the US Open just because of the exciting, like we got to see the future of tennis, I guess, because, Djokovic, Nadal was there, maybe a little hurt. Djokovic obviously wasn't there, but we saw everybody else that is going to be there for the most part. Maybe not Zverev, but we saw, we did see Medvedev, we saw Kyrgios, we saw Tsitsipas losing in the first round. We saw Alcaraz going on. Sinner did well. Tiafoe getting a good run again at a slam. Those guys, sort of even Ruud did relatively well. That was the one that was most exciting to me. Obviously, Australian Open was very exciting too because of the history on the line and, watching Rafa every match try and create or recreate history. But I just feel like the US Open, and maybe I'm thinking back again to the year before because I think the 2021 US Open was one of the most exciting for both men and women for a long time. But I feel like that, like for Alcaraz having the run, getting to world number one, the final was up for grabs. First Grand Slam, number one in the world was up for grabs for the first time in maybe ever. I can't remember the last time, maybe never, a Grand Slam final that was that high stakes. And it just was a nice glimpse into the future. That's why I went with that was the most exciting. I didn't realize we could go with smaller tournaments. Otherwise, I probably would have gone with the ATP Finals because that's the easiest pick of all.
Well, ATP Finals, I guess, it's because there's so many top players, so you get a lot of good matches, etc. But I don't think it was.
Did we though? I feel like we lacked good matches.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we got a few good tiebreakers where Medvedev lost 2 final set tiebreakers, didn't he? To Tsitsipas and Djokovic. Those were good matches, but
we got close matches because nobody could break serve.
True, they're so quick. Yeah, which is a good change of pace, literally. But I think it was probably maybe not the most exciting. Agreed, and it's difficult because I kind of agree with all of you. Like Stephen was talking about Roland Garros, and I was thinking, like how Cam mentioned as well, that everyone was there, but it lacked the final at the final stage where Ruud played, and he played a bit like a fan at that point. It was his first ever Grand Slam final as well, so we have to factor that in. But
just ultimate domination.
It was. So I mean, he just peppered his backhand. It was pretty. But then Ruud, to be fair, was better for it after, right? Later on in the year, to be fair. But obviously he had a really good match against Felix. I think it was in the round of 16, and then of course the good match against Djokovic in the quarterfinals. Semis against Zverev was unfortunate. Zverev had to retire.
That's honestly my biggest that's my biggest regret of 2022 was not being able to see what that match turned into. Like it was insane.
Yeah, that was a real grinder, wasn't it? With the roof as well.
Well, what was it? Was it 3 hours after 2 sets?
Yeah, so first set tiebreaker, close one, then second set was the tiebreaker, and then he got injured.
That match was a disaster. If they kept playing that match, I mean, the winner of the match was going to be the last, the first person to die was going to lose the match. I mean, that's how that was going to end.
Yeah. And to be fair,
that's
it probably would have made
I was just like, what is this? I don't know. This is like Passchendaele of tennis. Like it was like
it would have made a much more exciting final probably if Nadal had played a 5-hour match going into the Ruud final, right? You're probably getting a much closer match, and who knows? Yeah, but anyway, who knows? Wimbledon was exciting because of Kyrgios, but again, a lot of people weren't there. So and the Australian Open I get, but I have to agree with Gill. I think Madrid, just because of the run. The US Open, you can also, to be fair, I think would be my second because Alcaraz I think he played like 17 hours in his last 4 matches, which is unbelievable. But I think more just the excitement, and because that was the first initial stage where everyone was like, hold on, he's just being Nadal and Djokovic in consecutive days. What's going on? Like, we weren't expecting this. And that was there was definitely some excitement around that. Then obviously it festered after. So Madrid 2022 it is, and I don't have to argue because it's 2-1-1. That's fine. But yeah, so Madrid 2022 is our most exciting tournament for the ATP side anyway. Upset of the year. So I can go first as I haven't gone first, and probably not the one that you guys have gone for, but I went for Nadal versus TFO. I know Nadal hadn't played the best. That was at the US Open, throughout the US Open, but it was a surprise to me, and I know TFO, of course, went on to play some really good tennis after that, but I know he's played some decent tennis throughout the year, but I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was against Nadal, but he played, so it was an upset to me. Should we go Cam and then Gill Stephen?
Yeah, I went Paul beating Rafa at Paris. I didn't expect, Paul's a great player, but I didn't expect him to be able to beat Rafa. That was a big shock to me. I was gonna go with Rune beating Djokovic in the final of Paris, coming back from a set down in a final, which I don't think Djokovic has done or lost in a ATP 1000 final before like that. But I went Paul Nadal a little bit outside. I could have gone. I mean, there was a lot of matches throughout.
You could have gone Coric Nadal even, couldn't you? Was it since?
Yeah, well, that was also one that I had. I thought, but there's a massive long delay, and I thought, well, Coric. We all know Coric is better than his ranking suggests at the time. Paul, I mean, that was. Nadal was looking so cruisy, and it was just like, oh, okay, here we go. Rafa's into the next round, and then Paul came back out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he won. So that was the biggest. That was a shock, more of a shock to me. Whereas Rune, it was between those two for me.
Can't agree. With the Tommy Paul thing, indoors, top 30 opponent, strong righty backhand. Nadal hadn't played in a couple months. Tiafoe, I picked Nadal to win the US Open. I got to the ground, saw the way he was serving, and then it was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. And then I just feel like there was an ominous feeling. I mean, Nadal kind of got right against Gasquet in the match prior, who's his total pigeon. But other than that, it just seemed like Rafa was very vulnerable. So yes, I think those are contenders, but it didn't feel the same as like, I don't know. It's not quite there for me. I think if I had to pick a match, Djokovic over Rune in that Paris final. Sorry, other way, Rune over Djokovic in that Paris final. Because despite Rune going through the gauntlet, you expected it to end there. And you look at, Novak's dominance in that situation. He was also up a break in the second set. Frankly, though, this is a really bad year for this category. Galan, Tsitsipas was an option. That match had no juice. That's the thing. Like, was it extremely shocking? Yes. Was anybody watching it? No. Serena was playing. I was there because that was my job, but nobody cared. So that deducts points there. But I got to say, what I went with on Monday Match Analysis is Tim van Rijthoven winning Hertogenbosch. And that's not a singular match. You could say Medvedev in the final, but the most like shocking underdog upset kind of story of the year, in my opinion, was that Tim van Rijthoven run.
Great pronunciation throughout that last little bit there.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim van Rijthoven.
That was a big upset tournament. Honestly, runner-up upset for me was, this might sound weird, but Nadal beating Medvedev in the Australian Open final. Like, obviously it's not an upset because Nadal's won 20, or at that time it was his 21st slam. But if you guys remember, like, Medvedev was on such a roll. Like, he was, to me, the best player on hard court after US Open 2021. And then he did super well that entire, fall. And then coming to the Australian Open, he was looking very ominous, especially obviously with Djokovic not there. And after the first two sets, like, it looked like Medvedev totally had outclassed Nadal on that surface, and then obviously it turned around. I guess it's not technically an upset though, but yeah, I think I would go with I had Rune beating Tsitsipas at the French Open because to me, Tsitsipas was a great chance to win that title. Rune was a lot less well known then, like everyone still knew him, but he was, I think, lower. He was definitely lower ranked. I think he was like 40 or 50 in the world, and he kind of straight up beat him. Like, Tsitsipas didn't play that bad of a match. Like, a lot of his big upsets, he just kind of tosses a terrible match, and that was big. But I think, Rune, as Gill said, it beating Djokovic in the final of Paris in a tight match where, like, Djokovic wanted it, he didn't check out. Like, it was a super close match. Yeah, I've watched Rune grow every step of the way since he was 16, and it just blows my mind to what his level was like at the end of that last season. It was honestly like Alcaraz-esque rise to the top. It was like Alcaraz first half of the season, Rune the last 2 months was very similar, in my opinion, of like shockingly good tennis from an 19-year-old.
Yeah, agreed. And shout out to Stephen for interviewing him twice, so you can check out his interviews on his channel. Shout out, you're welcome, Stephen. But Holger Rune, I think Holger Rune, Djokovic, for me, I think I'm happy to change my answer to that because I do think that was a very, I don't know, before the match I thought you would have a pretty good chance just because of his form going into it, but on paper I think it is a big upset. And given as well that Cam mentioned Djokovic had never lost a final, ATP 1000 final even, from being a setup even. So I think, I'm happy to go with that as long as, I think someone went for it, didn't they? Or Stephen went for it. So you guys have been out.
Yeah,
and Gill.
Me too. Oh, and just to note, I mean, Novak won in his last 5 events of the season. Novak had 4 titles.
Yeah, he did.
That was his only loss.
Exactly. Yeah, he played so well, didn't he? After the US Open, he came back and it was almost like, I'm going to show you guys what you were missing at the US Open. And then he cleaned up at the Laver. Well, they lost the Laver Cup Europe, but he played extremely well. I watched him live against TFI. It was unbelievable. Live. I'd never seen him before, but he just was incredible. And then obviously Nur Sultan, Tel Aviv, and ATP Finals. And I'm missing one. But anyway, he was incredible.
No, it's the same thing. Same city, Nur Sultan and Astana. It's crazy Kazakh politics.
But anyway, he was incredible. He was in the back end of the year, and that's actually why And we'll talk about that later when we get to ATP Best Player of the Year, which I'm sure might be an interesting one. Anyway, funniest moment of the year on the ATP side. Who wants to go first? Is there anyone keen to go first?
I got one. For me, super recency bias and country bias, but it was Team Canada. Like they had this presser after they won, and it was I asked this question to two of the young guys that on the team who didn't play at all, but they neither of them could talk because they were like literally had lost their voice. And it was very funny for everyone who was there live. I couldn't hear like the journalists, but apparently the whole press room just went nuts. And it was quite funny. So I don't know. I can't really remember too many others. So that's my ATP funny moment of the year.
Gill, do you want to
go? Sure. So one moment I found pretty funny in the recent Hurkacz versus Coric match in Vienna is Coric hit a drop volley, a half volley drop volley that was so short in the court that Hurkacz came up to net and tried to dig it out and ended up getting himself stuck in the bottom of the net. It was simultaneously one of the better shots I saw all year and the funniest moment as Hurkacz looked to dislodge himself from the net like a fish who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Cam, you got one?
As soon as I thought funny, I thought Nick Kyrgios. I was gonna say Nick Kyrgios City Pass the whole
match. Debacle,
because there was just funny moments throughout. Well, funny, maybe not funny if you're a tennis purist, but funny
and disturbing.
But I thought Kyrgios when he played Rafa and he had that back and forth with Ben Stiller, that was, I think, one of the most the ATP milked that for a while. I think they might still be milking it on their socials. So that one, the back and forth between him and Ben Stiller was good for me.
Yeah,
that's a great point, Cam. The actually at the Wimbledon final, I know this turned into a lawsuit, but I thought Kyrgios's comment on the drunk lady, was the funniest thing I heard all year for sure.
It got settled. It's all good now. It's all good.
It's all good.
Of course, it got settled.
We can discuss it. It's fine.
How many beers did you have? 500 allegedly.
He said about 7. I don't know what he said. He's like. He just said it. Very good delivery. You know, half of comedy is just delivery, and it was very well delivered.
To be fair, his delivery is pretty good, Kyrgios, I have to say. Maybe he has a job as a comedian after tennis. Tsitsipas, even Kyrgios, Wimbledon, and one that you guys might not have seen, which was at the ATP finals, they did like a round table with all the players. I don't know if you watched it, but it was Medvedev and a couple of the other players kind of calling Felix Oxford because his vocabulary was pretty good, and they just kept on like pinning him, saying, "Oh, look at you!" Like just basically making fun of him because obviously he's a bit younger. But they all got along really well actually, which was great. And I thought it was quite a funny watch, to be honest with you. Then Rublev's always kind of in the corner giggling, telling everyone how bad his English is, which is just like it's not that bad. It's pretty good. He's a funny guy as well. But we don't have to pick one. They're all pretty funny. This isn't one to pick out, to be fair. But yeah, Kyrgios, I'm sure, will give us lots more. And given that the Netflix documentary is coming out, I'm sure there'll be more and more outrageous and funny moments. But cool, let's go on to the outrageous moment. And I can go first. I've got Zverev and Acapulco. I'm pretty sure that was this year, March 2022. Smashing the umpire's chair, which I think I've never seen before. I know it was doubles, but it was just unbelievable. And the second one, just I wanted to mention was...
I know it was doubles.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Makes it less bad.
Yeah. I don't know.
I know the umpire got killed. It was doubles, so nobody cares, but...
Nobody was watching.
That's not what I meant. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's fine. It's only doubles. But no, Tsitsipas...
I'm just taking the piss.
Tsitsipas... as well, in his comments on Rublev after very, very salty comments after losing to Rublev, calling him really limited and he won with the limited tools that he had. And then Rublev after coming out and saying, well, I've got a better forehand, I've got a better backhand, I've got a better serve after. So a little back and forth I find quite amusing, but probably because it was recent. Stephen, do you want to go first?
Sure. Like outrageous had to be for me. Novak Djokovic got deported from a country basically on national television before a tournament was not allowed to play. Like actually the most outrageous thing I've ever seen in sports, maybe. So to me, that takes it for me. Like actually Clown Town. I could not believe what we were watching happen in the world. Like I was always just thinking, like, if you're trying to like play this out in your mind like 5 years ago, I think you just couldn't. It would be like imagining like total like space, like what happens in like total darkness or something. It was just like your brain couldn't compute what's going on. It was such a crazy story, and it still feels like a make-believe story or something. I don't know. That was outrageous.
Yeah, that word outrageous, it's kind of leaves room for interpretation. So I didn't really know where we were quite going with this. But I'm going to add to to the Djokovic debacle. I remember tennis Twitter, and I presume many tennis journalists were under the impression that while Djokovic was being detained and we were waiting for legal proceedings to play out, that this Australian politician, this minister, was going to offer some information and some comments on the Djokovic case. So all of us who are following closely tuned in to this weekly briefing for this, Australian PM. And we watched for 30 minutes as this politician talked about many things, Australia, public policy, COVID, all that. No Djokovic, zero Djokovic. It had nothing to do with Novak. We all, as a tennis community, tuned in to a regular political weekly briefing for no reason. And that is my outrageous moment of the year.
Well, I got a lot out of it. It wasn't useless to me living here, but I agree with you guys. It's got to be the Djokovic stuff. I mean, this time last year, he refused to answer questions about it.
Yeah.
He was like,
that was the first red flag. That was the first bad sign.
And then it was, I mean, yeah, that whole thing was just insane. Like especially to be here, like in Melbourne, and to hear like my friends who don't give a stuff about tennis coming to me and being like, what's going to happen? They've got their opinions. They're like, oh, we shouldn't let him in. We should let him in, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like everybody here was all of a sudden tennis. And I think that probably helped the Australian Open because it was the best the best and worst promotion you could have had for the tournament, because then everyone, I mean, it's going to be the best promotion for next year's tournament because now he can play. I mean, it's never, I mean, you can say the Russian ban at Wimbledon was also outrageous, but the Djokovic stuff was just like how it went on forever. It could have been avoided had he just been told, no, you can't play before he got on the plane. He gets on the plane, he gets here, he gets detained, he's allowed to play. I mean, the back and forth, and then eventually they just went, we don't want you here, so you have to leave now. Even though he won, and you're like, okay. And then he was in the draw. They pulled him out of the draw. Kecmanovic takes his spot basically and does pretty well. I mean, and it just was, it's got to be the most outrageous of the 2000s. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I almost kind of forgot. It was so long ago now as well. It was January, but I mean that was incredible. And I think I don't think I've ever tuned into a legal hearing. On a virtual legal hearing, and it wasn't even just one; it was two, wasn't it? With Djokovic
12 hours.
And trying to understand what they were talking about and all the legal jargon. And I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? I'm trying to explain, okay, well, I think this is what's happening, but really, I have absolutely zero idea as to what they're talking about. But that was interesting as well, trying to understand what's going on there. And a good point as well, Cam, about the Russian ban. I mean, obviously, even more political as well, but. That wasn't, from a tennis standpoint, it wasn't great to not see them at Wimbledon. And then, of course, leading on from that, then no points. And, of course, Kyrgios made a point of that recently, and some other people have, of course, because the rankings would have been different year end. So, yeah, a few things that are very good points. But, yeah, definitely, I think Djokovic's trial and well, he's playing next year, so that's all good. Hopefully a fully fit field will be good to see. On to then some of the, maybe more interesting ones. So most improved player of the year. And there's quite a few people that might have put their hands up for this. Cam, do you want to go first?
I went with Alcaraz. I mean, he went like this time last year, and I got to give credit to Gill for putting him in. I didn't put him in my top 10 for this year, which makes me look so dumb. But I know you did. I think you had him. I don't know where you had him in your top 10 predictions. 7. I kind of went, he needs another year, because last year he just couldn't beat those guys. Like he did well at the US Open and had a good run, towards the end of the year. But I just thought, give him another year. I mean, he just blew that out of the water. Became world number 1, youngest world number 1 ever on the men's side. Won a slam. He's got to be most improved for me.
Gill?
Agreed. Starts the year at 32 in the world, finishes year at number 1. We've seen so many guys in the last, decade or so have that top 10 breakthrough, get into what I would consider the tier 2 of players where, they're beating really most of the field, maybe struggling just to get through, Nadal and Djokovic at the majors, or something like that. And, Alcaraz just blew through the yield sign there, and kind of in an instant was suddenly playing tennis that was tier 1 elite, can beat anybody, taking out, top 5 players. So, it's Alcaraz. Sometimes it's someone making that jump from like, I don't know, a Karatsev to like you're outside the top 100 to you have a top 30 season. In this case, it's a guy going from 30 to 1, which to me is just as impressive and just as difficult.
Yeah, I went with Holger Rune, because to me, like, he was outside. So this time last year, he was outside the top 100, and it's obviously Alcaraz is the other option, and super valid as well. Like, 30 to 1, is that harder than 100 to 10? I don't know. It's like, maybe they're both like incredible to me. And what was really incredible is like, I think outside of top 100, I think Rune was he was playing challengers at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, he's literally beating Tsitsipas, Felix, Djokovic, Alcaraz. Like, he beat every single top guy. I'm sure he would have beat Nadal if they had played on the indoor hard courts. I think we could all agree on that. So challengers to that, and then being top 10 and still 19, like, to me, it was almost like Alcaraz hit his top level of tennis, like in basically like March, April to me. So like, and then his ranking improved after that. But to me, like him winning the US Open was like not as impressive almost as like what he did in like May, like when he was beat like the Madrid run. Like, to me, like, obviously like winning the US Open is huge, but he didn't beat Djokovic and Nadal on that run. Or like a Tsitsipas or a Zverev. Like, he was like almost like the man to beat once Nadal went out. So he won it, which was crazy, but I don't know. So just, they're both very similar. I'm just going with Rune, just more spots and just like more of a contrast from like where he started the year to where he ended up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually had Holger Rune as well, mainly because I feel like we've got the Young Player of the Year and Best Player of the Year coming up. And I feel like Alcaraz is going to vie for maybe both of them, if not one. But I think you made a good point about him being outside the top 100, and then I think he finished 11, but he broke into the top 10. Right. And that's why he was an alternate at the ATP finals as well. And he had an incredible run at the end, of course, as well, going from challengers to then, and the improvements he's made. I know all of you have mentioned it on your channels, and how he's managed to improve over the last year has been incredibly impressive. Also had a couple of shout outs for Taylor Fritz. I know he's been steadily improving throughout every single year for the past.
Taylor Fritz gave a shout out to Taylor Fritz.
Didn't get a nom. Didn't get a nom.
Yeah, didn't get a nom. Yeah, he should have though. I mean, look, he's been really good. I think he's been really good this year.
He's borderline. He was really good at the end of 2021, and that's why it was like you kind of made your jump last year, not this year. So.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And then I also put TFO as well. I feel like he hasn't really had the kind of, this has been a little bit of a breakthrough year, if that makes sense. People that he's beaten. I think, Cam, you mentioned Coric, we know what he's about, but then I guess that's more of a comeback, I guess, than an improvement. But Holger Rune for me. Cam and Gill, are you very keen on keeping Alcaraz?
Like,
do we want to try to sway?
You want to slam? Paris is nice, but
it's about improved, right?
Trophies.
It's not most prestigious player; it's most improved player.
Yeah. Okay. Well, by ranking, you guys are 100%. ranking for sure. But then, like Stephen was saying, is going from 30 to 1 a bigger jump than going from 100 to 10. Like it's like the tiers as well. There's a difference between top tier and second or third tier, which I think Rune is probably third tier for me.
Yeah, it's hard to say at the moment, right? But yeah, I mean, everybody would agree. Like, it's way harder to go from 20 to 1 than it is 40 to 20. Like, it's exponential.
It gets hard. Yeah, it's not linear. It gets tough one.
More, yeah.
I don't know if we have to all agree.
We don't have to all agree, but Faizan needs to make a decision here.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Make a decision, Faizan.
I'm going Holger Rune because I think I feel like Alcaraz. We're going to talk about him coming up as well. So let's give Holger Rune his props for most improved player of the year. So congrats to you. Sorry, Cam and Gill, but I'm sure you'll get your time to shine coming up. ATP most disappointing player of the year. I've listed quite a few here, but I'll go last. Steven, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'd love to go. I can't decide if it's Medvedev or Tsitsipas for me, which might sound funny to some people. Tsitsipas, I think he had the second most wins or the most wins on tour.
Most
wins on tour. So I think I'm still happily putting him in potentially as most disappointing. Medvedev was banned because of his nationality, also had a fairly serious injury. So that did play into his, decrease in level from 2021, where he became world number one. Or wait, did he become world number one in 2021, or was that?
Yeah, he did. He did
shortly,
very short period.
I think he was longer number one in 2022. But again, it was kind of because of become from default. I have an interesting theory about him where he's the best player in the world until he's number one, which is funny. Anyways, I almost think it's Tsitsipas because to me, Tsitsipas is still one of the guys who can, absolutely win multiple slams, many slams. I just feel like it's disappointing how he has not figured out certain aspects of his game, and it's been hard to watch almost at times him and his coaching relationship with his dad, where it just feels like they're like spinning their tires. And him getting to like pigeon. Gill brought up the word pigeon earlier. I love pigeon status in tennis. Like he's basically in pigeon territory against Djokovic, which to me is ridiculous because he could easily be like level with him as far as head to head.
We'll beat him next year. I reckon he'll beat him next year.
Oh, he should.
He's close. He's close.
He probably will, and it should. I don't think it should really surprise anyone. The thing that's totally surprising to me is that it's like 10-1 now after it started, or 10-2. It started 2-1 for Tsitsipas, and he just has the game to beat him, I think. But he's just like, he seems like he did everything in 2022 that he should have done, but then he didn't win any matches or beat anyone that he like could have. Like he didn't he was in the final so many tournaments and lost to like Koric and like Rune and Djokovic multiple times, which you can't really blame him for. But it was really just like a year where it's like what could have been for him. So that's why it was disappointing. I'm not even like overly like fanboyish of him. I think he's a great guy. I think he gets a lot of. I think ESL needs to have some sympathy in our world here. Like people who don't speak English as well. Like he's not like amazing at English. Like it does come off like differently than someone like Kyrgios, like talking trash. You know what I mean? Like I do think you got to take it with a grain of salt. But anyways, to me it was a disappointing year for Tsitsipas, even though it was an amazing year. But that just shows like the quality of player I think of him as.
It's interesting. Sorry, just before we go to you on Tsitsipas, just quickly, is that Gill mentioned that he obviously has the most wins this year, but that's why I think, in Gill, you mentioned this on your channel, that win percentage is it's a more efficient stat to use, I think, than matches won, right? Because not anyone, but you can have someone play 100 matches or whatever it is, 70 matches in a year, and someone who plays 30 matches. We saw like when Nadal and Djokovic played, I think half the amount of matches almost that Tsitsipas played, but their win percentage was a lot higher. So with Tsitsipas, I think if you look at his year overall and the amount of matches won, you'd say, oh, that's a great year because he won the most. But I think where he let himself down was the slams, right? Wimbledon lost to Galan in the first round, then Holger Rune at Roland Garros, where a lot of people had high hopes for him after being 2 sets to love up in the final last year against Djokovic. And the Galan loss, I think, was big because he made a lot of strides on the grass court, on that small grass court swing beforehand, and was clearly trying to make a go of it. So that was probably disappointing. I know he made the semis in Australia, so and he's made back-to-back semis there. So I'm sure he'll come back swinging next year. But yeah, I think that's been the issue, is that he hasn't kicked on, as he said, to the slams, and people probably would have expected him to. But so yeah, Gill, your most disappointing player.
I agree that if it might not be apparent in the stats, but if you just watched the season, it was a little bit frustrating for Tsitsipas. However, I do think there are bigger disappointments in terms of, you know, the top players. My biggest miss here was Medvedev. I mean, to finish the year at number 7, I thought he'd end year-end number 1, especially playing a heavier schedule than Djokovic. So that was by far my biggest miss from the beginning of the year. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are a lot of ways to explain away Medvedev's disappointments. I look at 2 guys who don't quite have those expectations, but Aslan Karatsev, I thought was a disappointment. He went 17-29 after winning the title in Sydney to start the year. You thought, okay, you're back on track. I thought he, you know, I didn't think he was about to be a top 10 player, but I thought he was going to be a top 30 guy. And that didn't happen. And Hugo Humbert is a young player with tons of talent who is just not putting it together. And I can't really figure out why. He went 9-21 at tour level this season. So I would say between Karatsev and Humbert, I guess I'd give it to Karatsev, because Humbert really has not once in his career, you know, put it together week after week after week thus far. He's still young.
Yeah, I think back in 2020, something like that, I made a top 10 in players the next 10 years, and I actually had Humbert in there like at 9 or 10 or 8 or something.
Yeah, I mean, he looked so good for a year and a half. Well, about a year and a half ago, didn't he? On the grass, or some last year? It would have been.
He won Hala, right?
Yeah, he won Hala last year. I saw him against Kyrgios at Wimbledon, and obviously that's a really tough match. So he lost it in 5, but he played some really good tennis, and
twice.
That was an unfortunate draw, but. You're just thinking, look, you know, like, you're clearly a talented player, and I was thinking he's going to kick on, and he just has never really kicked on, which is weird, as Gill was saying. Cam, who's your most disappointing player?
Yeah, look, Medvedev was going to be my pick, just because. But then I kind of give him a benefit of the doubt. I think he had, with the injuries and the whole, you know, we don't know how bad all the Russian players were around that mid-season, you know, that being forced not to play. And I think the Australian Open final has scarred him for a bit. And then he got to world number 1. Maybe he felt like he didn't deserve it because he wasn't winning when he got it by chance. But I went with Karatsev as well, because I from where he was this time last year, and even at the start of the year, like you were saying, like, it looked like he was so hard to beat. Everyone was like, how the hell, what this guy, when he does just smacks the ball around, he was like a way better emotionally controlled Rublev with all the shots, but he wasn't emotional. And you're like, geez, this guy's going to just beat the brakes off everybody. And then he just disappeared, and he just started losing matches and there was, the match fixing allegations, which didn't help that he was losing, maybe that, I don't know. We don't know what's going on with that.
Seriously suspect.
But yeah, I mean, he was from what he was like, 12 months ago, and the hype and the danger that he just didn't show that this year. I think Humbert didn't he beat Medvedev to start the year as well? So I could see that.
He did. Yeah.
Being really disappointing too. But yeah, Medvedev, I can kind of give benefit of the doubt because of, he made the final of Australia. Actually did well at the French, which I think was a surprise. Lost all these finals, which was sad to see for Medi. But Karatsev was pretty disappointing for me, considering how scary he was. He was sort of, that Runa Alcaraz aura around him, like this guy could beat anybody, and then he didn't beat anybody really this year.
Yeah, interesting point about Karatsev, who was definitely had a disappointing year. Like when I was in Europe, going around to a lot of these 250s, I would see these guys, like I would see Karatsev like walk by in the hallway, but I love poking in and like watching the practices, and I would see just Karatsev. I think he switched coaches halfway through the year. I saw him grinding on the practice court in Rome, and then I saw him like in Stuttgart on the grass, and it was always just like 0 people around, like no one watched. I mean, a lot of these were just like fans couldn't access, but it was just it does show that like these guys, like he was putting in the work all the way through, just couldn't. he used to, like, I heard it like him say to his coach, he's like, I can't make 2 shots in a row, even in practice. Like, it was just like crazy, you know, the same types of confidence swings that we all go through on a tennis court. Like, the pros actually get the same, but they're just such better tennis players, obviously. And then at the same time, I don't really feel too, because I saw the same thing with Tsitsipas. Like, I saw him just like staring off into the distance in practice sometimes, but he's also making millions of dollars a year playing tennis. So I don't really feel bad for him in any way.
Yeah, it's weird. And I guess we're maybe not the mental experts on this, but when you're missing balls like that, do you just take like a little bit of a break, like don't practice as much, or do you just continually grind, but then it gets worse and worse? Like, it's just like a balancing act, and it's really weird. But I'm sure we all play some level of tennis, so I'm sure we've all been through our ups and downs, and obviously no broken rackets, of course. We just place them down gently if we're angry.
I've broken a couple.
Okay, fair enough. It's fine. No
kind of accidentally. Like, I use the Yonex, or I was using the Yonex SV95, and if you like tee it on the ground, like, you know, when you bounce it and it comes back to you, they will just crack. And,
oh, really?
Like,
oh, god.
I mean, a Wilson, you like anything that's round, you can really give a good go, and there's probably, but they will just crack. And so then when the first time I did it, it just cracked, and then that made me even more mad. So I just like finished the job properly.
It's cracked. Yeah,
I was like playing this like 16-year-old at my club. I was like a stressful time in my life. He's just like, should we go home now? I was like, yeah, I'll drive you home.
Oh god, meltdown with the Yonex.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with Mehdi in terms of what you guys are saying, and it's interesting because he started off pretty well, I guess, making the Australian Open final. Would have been disappointed to lose it, but towards the back end of the year, the reason why I won't give it to him is because I could see that he's been trying to make improvements in his game. At the start of the year, and I guess maybe because of that Nadal match where he was almost allergic to the net and he looked so awkward in the forecourt, suddenly towards the back end of the year, I don't know if I'm assuming you guys saw as well, like he was actually trying to come to the net. Like ATP finals, not all the time, obviously he's not a servant volleyer, but there were some instances where he was trying to come forward and he wouldn't be scared to come forward. He had an approach where he actually try and close the net and transition, and that was really interesting. And so I think he's understood that he can't just be a human backboard and then just break down people like that all the time. He needs to be able to have different elements to his game, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on next year as well, and if he's able to implement it. But I think that was a positive from his year. But Karatsev, for me, definitely he was down as my most disappointing player of the year. I think it's just been a real fall from grace, and he just hits so many unforced errors. Like every single match, even the matches he wins, it's just like crazy. And I guess that's part of the excitement around him, is that he hits big, he takes risks, and I get that. But it's been a shame that we haven't seen the best of him. But yeah, so apologies, Aslan Karatsev, if you're watching. I'm sure you're not, so it's fine. ATP Young Player of the Year. This is an exciting one. Who wants to go first? Cam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I went with Alcaraz.
There you go. Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, giving I guess I split it up in my head. Alcaraz most improved, Rune Young Player of the Year. Like I'm looking at this as kind of newcomer of the year. Alcaraz isn't quite newcomer status in 2022, almost there, but that was last year. He was newcomer of the year last year. So this year, I think that's Rune. And by the way, there's been a good like steady flow, because the year before it was Sinner. So now we have Sinner, Alcaraz, Rune, newcomer of the year in 3 straight years, which is pretty nice.
That is nice. That was very nice. Yeah, I went with Alcaraz as well. Young Player of the Year, #1 in the world, won a slam.
Yeah. I think Alcaraz. I think that's fine, and I get your point, Gil. I think Young Player of the Year. So I have a couple of others just as honourable mentions. Nakashima, of course, won the Next Gen tournament, and also I think he played some really good stuff this year. I think he won San Diego. Yeah, San Diego, and then also played really well even against Kyrgios at Wimbledon. I watched the whole match, and I was really impressed with him in that match, and took him to 5. I feel like he's going to be a very, very good talent coming through. So I'm excited to see what he can do, and I'm sure, Gil, you're excited as he's from the US, and he's actually done what I thought someone like Seb Korda would have done at this point. But I feel like Seb Korda is kind of he's not been disappointing, and that's why I didn't mention him the most disappointing, but he's maybe not taken the strides I thought he would. But Nakashima is coming on nicely. Sinner you mentioned, and obviously Rune Musetti as well. I feel like he's starting to improve as well, and that's good to see. But yeah, Alcaraz as ATP Young Player of the Year, for sure. I'm happy to go with
that. Are you
that.
not going to pick Draper?
Oh yeah, Jack Draper, of course. I mean, look, he's also improving, and he's I think 42 now. So maybe next year, Cam. If he'd won the next gen, then definitely, definitely. ATP Best Player of the Year, and this is the one that everyone's been looking forward to. I'm gonna go last because I want to make sure that no one hates me. So let's go, Stephen. Do you want to go first?
It's okay. I'm used to people on the internet hating me. Yeah, I'll go with a certain group of people on the internet hating me. I will go with Alcaraz. I will go with Alcaraz to maybe solidify that hatred. But yeah,
it's very diplomatic.
He's the number one player in the world. He is the number one player in the world. I think kind of like the best player of the year is typically sorted by the rankings, and I know the rankings kind of almost don't mean anything this year. But he, to me, he was the biggest storyline. Like you look back through the years, and if you pick one standout player from all the last years, like to me, it was like Federer 2017, and then like Djokovic, like 2013, 14, 15, Murray 16. I think Alcaraz is the guy of 2022, and it probably maybe should have been Djokovic, but he didn't play two of the tournaments. People would say he wasn't allowed. Some will say he chose not to play. But the fact of the matter is Alcaraz was there all the way through, number one player in the world, and the most exciting player of 2022, in my opinion, for sure. So, and the player of the year for me.
Yeah, it's not most exciting, Stephen. Come on, get with the program.
He's everything.
He's everything, and what up into what? Very diplomatic, by the way. You didn't pick Djokovic or Nadal. Very clever. Gill, who's your best player of the year?
I don't know if it's diplomatic. I think that is the answer that has the largest group of people angry at you.
It's true.
You get both of them going.
I didn't even consider Nadal for some reason. Is that a problem, or is that?
Yeah, it is, because that's my answer. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's my answer. Yeah, I mean, look, there has to basically. This award is generally going to go to the player who wins the most majors. There might be rare exceptions where someone's got two majors, another player has one, but the player who had one really tore it up for the rest of the year. This is not one of those years. This is a year where, Nadal had two majors, Alcaraz had one, Djokovic had one. You look at big titles, Nadal had two, Djokovic and Alcaraz had three each. You look at total titles, Nadal had four, Alcaraz and Djokovic had five each. So yes, with Nadal, all the injuries, some of the losses he suffered, being ineffective, over the course of the indoor hardcourt season, you can point to a couple of factors and say, well, he wasn't quite as efficient as the other two, but it was close. And if it's close, the majors are going to dictate. And to me, certainly Djokovic, if he could switch places with Nadal and have those two majors and be ahead in the slam race, 22-21. I think Novak takes that any day of the week. And, as for Carlos Alcaraz, he's world number one because he had the most complete year. But, he didn't dominate as much as he would have needed to in order to usurp the player who won two majors in 2022, Rafa Nadal.
He won a lot of tournaments in the Alcaraz.
Five. Nadal won four.
Yeah.
So, you have a slight difference there. It's slight. It's not enough to me.
No, agreed. Cam?
Yeah, I've got Rafa. It's Djokovic, Rafa, Alcaraz. You can make an argument for all three. But like to Gill's point, I think two majors, you win two majors, it's hard to pick against that. And then also, I think maybe the French Open match between Djokovic and Nadal, that might have been, if that had gone the other way, then we might have been talking Djokovic more. Djokovic has definitely been the best player in the last couple of months. But for the year, he lost one match at a slam this year he got to play all four. He won two. He lost, he obviously withdrew against Kyrgios, but he did only lose one. Alcaraz, if you look at, I guess, wins and losses, did Alcaraz have worse losses than Nadal did, even though he didn't have, it's so hard this year to do any of this kind of comparison because there's so many players that didn't get a chance to play had Berrettini not got COVID and Wimbledon been complete, would there be a different champion? Maybe, who knows? If Zverev didn't roll his ankle, would he have beaten Nadal? There's all these things. If Djokovic played the Australian Open, would there be anything different there? Or the US Open, would Alcaraz have beaten Djokovic to win it? So it's such a bugger this year because of all of the things that have stopped us from getting complete fields. But I just got to go Rafa with 2 slams.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can get caught in the what if, and I get that Djokovic couldn't play 2 slams, and so Djokovic fans totally understand that, but that's just the way it is. I feel like we just have to focus on the tennis, the matches that were played, who played and who won what, and Nadal was on for the Canada Slam, right? So if you're on for the Canada Slam after the first 2 slams, then surely you've got to get it. He made the semis of Wimbledon, he pulled out because of injury. Not saying he would have won it, but of course, who knows what happens then against Kyrgios, etc. So that's fine. And the US Open, of course, loses to TFO. But that first half of the year, I think he was just incredible, the way that he came through it. So I think he definitely, for me, gets Best Player of the Year as well. If you want to take it on win percentage, Djokovic is actually the only player to have a higher win percentage, and that's because of the ATP finals where he went 6-0. So he was actually at 82%. He finished on 87% win to loss ratio. Nadal was at 83%. Alcaraz on 82%, for anyone that cares. But I think if you look at the accomplishments and achievements in the year, it's got to be Nadal. So well done to Rafa. I know you definitely tune into this, so well done to you. And I'm sure this is your best achievement of the year.
Is that 3 Rafa versus 1 Alcaraz?
It is, yeah.
That's crazy to me. Like I know, my rankings was literally Alcaraz, Djokovic, Nadal, and I get that Nadal won 2 slams, but like you guys said, this is my rebuttal. I understand that, yes, I lost this, but Nadal won. Yeah, they're the asterisk slams. Like, which one are the most? Not saying that his are, but the Australian Open to me was deflated with Djokovic not playing. Wimbledon was deflated for sure to me. And then, yes, I kind of realized at the end, I was like, yeah, he did win 2 slams. But then for the last half of the year, and this is, again, probably recency bias, he just looks so beatable by, the top 35. And, if you're just player of the year, I think even though there was so much chaos and the product was heavily damaged by, the politics around tennis, the rankings still matter. And, I don't know, the biggest storyline to me was, did it not feel unmonumentous when Nadal won that Australian Open? It didn't seem like other times when he's even won slams that it felt more monumentous when he tied Federer's record almost to me. I don't know.
Oh, really?
That's just the vibe I got in the community. It was just okay. He won the slam, but Djokovic wasn't there. That's what to me everyone almost said.
I think to me it wasn't, but again, maybe a little bit of bias because I'm a bit of a fan as well. But I think because of the match, though, the way he came back, I thought it was really monumental because I didn't.
And me too. Me personally too. I thought it was the craziest, most monumental tournament of the year. But I don't know. That's just the vibe I got.
No, I didn't feel that way. I thought it was regarded as, one of Nadal's greatest major finals, one of the greatest comebacks we've ever seen, but also, the quarterfinal escape against Shapovalov was insane and incredible. Look, I don't think Rafa did that much with his tennis to earn that. It was more Shapo. Sorry, Steven. But, that was incredible. And the Felix match. No, sorry, that was Felix Medvedev. I'm getting that confused. What was the semifinal? Berrettini? Nadal Berrettini?
Yeah, Berrettini.
Anyway, I don't know. Look, I thought maybe some people boycotted, but those are people who watch tennis mostly for Novak. And I think there's a far greater population who are going to watch the Australian Open no matter what. And it doesn't matter if we're missing, certain individuals.
I think the fact as well that he got revenge over Novak at Roland Garros, I think also is a big one because he lost last year to him, right? So the way that he then beat him and then beat Felix in 5, which is a really tight one, he just played him before. Again, as you said, Stephen, the Zverev one is left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, to me, it's just so close. If you first half of the season was Nadal was the best player, and I don't know, Alcaraz was the most exciting player, and then second half it was Alcaraz wins the slam, finishes the year as number 1, but then Djokovic is maybe the best player. So very hard to pick for me between those 3. But I understand, at the end of the day, majors is what counts the most in the big 3 era. So let's give it to Nadal. I'll concede. I'll concede.
Would Rafa have been number one at some point this year if Wimbledon counted for points, or was there? I know there was a debate going around the last couple of weeks if he would have been, or if
He
Alcaraz
made,
would
I
have
guess he
just
made
been in front.
quarterfinals there.
Semi-finals.
A semi, yeah.
But he lost.
He
Remember,
pulled out
he
the
pulled
semi-final
out.
Oh
against
yeah,
Kyrgios.
because I
pulled
keep
out,
thinking he lost to Fritz, but
No, he beat him with a
Like,
100-mile-an-hour
Fritz
serve.
should not be allowed to be most improved because he lost that match. Like that was like
Yeah, was that
actually
choke? I don't know.
savage.
Anyway, God, that'll scar him. Although he beat him later on in the year, so it's all good in
Yeah.
the ATP finals. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, Stephen Nadal. Remember, it's Nadal, 22
Okay.
Player of the Year.
Fair enough.
On to WTA then. WTA Grand Slam Match of the Year. I can go first. I picked Serena's farewell match just because I thought it was really exciting. For one, she just beaten Kontaveit, a really good match, and then against Tomjanovic, I thought it was a very competitive match. Obviously, there's reception as well around it, and everyone tuning in, seeing can Serena keep on going. She saved a couple of match points as well. Tomjanovic played her part. I thought it was a good farewell and a really fighting performance. Do you want to go? Cam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the US Open. I went Swiatek Sabalenka semi-final. The Serena one for me, like it was great when she beat Kontaveit, but then when she lost to Tomjanovic, it was like, oh, that was the one you were supposed to. That was the one we thought we'd all should win, and then she'd make the quarters or whatever. But yeah, then Sabalenka proved at the WTA finals that okay, this is going to be an interesting match next year as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact she was down 4-2, she was complaining. Or she wasn't complaining, but she was saying that I have to change my game. This is not suiting my game. Swiatek, that is. This is not my court. I'm not feeling it out here. And then to come back again, I know Sabalenka definitely is prone to choke, but it was just showing that how good Swiatek is. That match for me, and I mean, you could go back. I mean, I could pick Barty matches if I wanted to go back to Australia, but I got to pick that one just because of it went 3 sets. There was a comeback at the end. Sabalenka had it. Swiatek took it and then went on to win the whole thing.
Good choice. Yeah, I mean, look, we didn't get a lot of great matches at the end of majors on the women's side. Well, looking back, that's unfortunately clear. We did have a 3-setter in the Wimbledon final between Rybakina and Jabeur. None of the sets themselves brought as much tension as we wanted. To me, it's Serena beating Kontaveit. It's a cultural. I mean, that burst through the tennis bubble. It was absolutely electric. Probably the best tennis crowd, best is going to be a word people might contend with. Loudest tennis crowd I have ever seen. So I'm going to go with Serena upsetting the world number 2, who, yes, I mean, we all know she wasn't playing like the world number 2, but still, I mean, on paper it was a little bit surprising that Serena was able to reach that level and Kontaveit, kind of folding in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm gonna also go with Serena beating Kontaveit. Like it was so like watching from Europe. Actually, it was so loud. I could tell like the audio and the ESPN coverage was like maxing out. Like when you have it was crazy. And yeah, it was just such a moment. And yeah, it was a good like really quality match. But I think more like the moment and how epic it was for her kind of farewell tournament. So yeah, that's my match of the year.
Wow, you've got a winner, Serena versus Kontaveit, and yeah, that was a fantastic match.
Grand
So
Slam match,
happy with that. Or Grand Slam match, sorry, even of the year. Thank you, Stephen. But yeah, the Sabalenka Swiatek one was good as well, Cam. I think I was disappointed that Sabalenka didn't come back because she was 4-2 up, wasn't she? And then Swiatek came back to win in the final set. So that was okay. She got revenge, as he said. WTA match of the year, Stephen. Do you want to go first? So obviously excluding Grand Slams.
Yeah, I had Krejcikova defeating Swiatek in Ostrava. That was a match I watched, and that was it was 3 sets, home crowd for Krejcikova, and it was just like pretty very good quality tennis, and showed I think I get the years mixed up, but Krejcikova won both French Open champions, battling, and yeah, it was just a great match. I think the highest quality match I saw on the WTA all year.
My pick as well. Especially because when you look at Swiatek's losses, you could put them into a couple of buckets. There were some matches where it just seemed like a crisis of confidence, where like she just kind of imploded. I'd say like the Elise Cornet match at Wimbledon, for example. Then there were a couple matches where she played, power players who basically slapped second serve returns. Ostapenko, Collins at the Australian Open. I don't mean to say slapped as in they can't do that consistently. They can. But I feel like Krejcikova was the first player to like actually outduel a pretty good version of Swiatek from the baseline, which just seemed impossible and still does seem impossible. So that's my pick.
Yep, I picked that one as well. I think the only final that Swiatek lost for the whole year as well. And yeah, it was, and it's interesting because it was a home crowd, but watching that match, it didn't feel like it was one-sided because apparently from geographically, it's pretty close to Poland. So there was a lot of Polish people there too. So you could argue that it wasn't a Czech crowd, so it wasn't like Swiatek had to battle the crowd. But yeah, that was the quality. I think it went forever. Yeah, that was definitely that's got to be up there as the match of the year for me as well.
Yeah, I picked that as well. Krejcikova, good to see her. She had a very weird year. I'll mention her later on in some of the categories, but she came, it came together nicely for her against Swiatek, and Swiatek has been so dominant this year that it was the first final she's lost in a while, because I know she lost her first ever final, but since then she's been on this ridiculous run. So, I mean, for a few years now, so it's incredible to see it finally end. But yeah, incredible win from Krejcikova. So well done to her on winning WTA Match of the Year, or excluding Grand Slams, of course. But Swiatek, don't worry, you'll have your time coming soon. WTA most exciting tournament of the year. Interesting. I found this quite hard. Cam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, this one is hard. I went to the Australian Open just because I'm Aussie and Barty won, and it was great for Australia, and it was awesome to be a part of that. And obviously the men's side, there was the Djokovic stuff, which we talked about enough. So yeah, it was to see Barty break the drought. I mean, I watched Leighton lose in 2005. I mean, I've seen the highlights of Cash losing back in the 80s, and to see an Aussie champion finally break the drought was awesome. So I went with the Australian Open just because of that.
Barty
and I'm totally on board with that. That was so fun. Barty's tennis, I mean, just had so much appeal. The crowds, the atmospheres were amazing. The storyline was great. And the excitement, I mean, you could feel. I loved, just looking at the TV ratings in Australia, how crazy those were. Contextualizing them with American TV ratings. I mean, it was really awesome, that run. And the fact that she was, beating everyone in her path so easily, that didn't really detract from it, in my opinion. So I'm happy to jump on board with the Australian Open.
Yeah, right there as well. Barty, who I desperately miss on the WTA, winning was pretty awesome. And yeah, for all the reasons you guys said, agree.
Barty, come back. Come on. Make it interesting with Swiatek next year, please. Yeah, Barty. I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm happy to go with that. I had also shout out to the US Open. I thought, again, a bit of recency bias, but I thought some of the matches, the semi-finals, for example, some top players who'd come into some great form. The final maybe not as exciting as it could have been, but Barty, the way that she, as you said, Cam, ended the drought for Australia, and there was so much excitement around it. Of course, she retired pretty soon after as well, but great to see her win, and it meant a lot to her as well. So, yeah, incredible tournament, and looking forward to 2023 as well for the Australian Open, because it's always a great start to the year. WTA Upset of the year. I'm happy to go. I've got two. I've got Swiatek versus Cornet, which Gill mentioned at Wimbledon, which might not be a massive upset to some of you maybe, but for me, I thought it was a pretty big one. Seeing the way she was playing, it wasn't that surprising, because I thought she really struggled to adapt, and she didn't play any tournaments before Wimbledon. Winning Roland Garros, went straight onto it. Just like she wasn't adjusting to the pace of the courts at all. And then I also had Jabeur versus Lynette, Roland Garros round 1. Now, Jabeur had such a good clay court swing. And then to lose in the opening round, where a lot of people thought she'd go on to make the final challenge, she wanted to potentially even win it. And the fact that she made 2 finals this year, and one of them wasn't Roland Garros, is even more surprising. But I thought that was a massive upset. Stephen, do you want to go?
Yeah, there was a lot of big upsets. I thought I was pretty bullish on Jabeur all year, and she did have a great, obviously, year. But I thought, losing first round at the French Open was kind of just like a total blip in her really good middle, beginning, and U.S. Open part of her year. So it's kind of just like a random loss and like a pretty big one for her. But then I think I talked to her at a press conference like right after that, and she just took it obviously very well, and then made the final of Wimbledon shortly after, lost another tough one. But yeah, that was for me the biggest upset.
There are a lot to choose from, actually. I actually like Daria Sneager beating Simona Halep at the U.S. Open. Yeah, we forget about some of these, but I just felt, Halep was all right. There were questions about how Iga was going to be able to do at the U.S. Open, coming in complaining about the balls and all of that. Halep was the second favorite, and she goes out in the first round against a player who really doesn't win matches at tour level on a regular basis. So I don't think it gets much bigger than that.
Yeah, that was, the WTA and upsets, it goes hand in hand. Man, I didn't think that one slipped my mind.
Think about that
too.
I'll tell you what, the WTA wrote a piece on the biggest upsets of the year, and that wasn't in there. I don't know if we're just trying to not mention the name Simona Halep right now and wait for the PED stuff to blow over. I don't know.
Most outrageous moment. You know what? Actually, we didn't even talk about Verdasco for most outrageous moment. But anyway, that's ATP's done. But yeah, sorry, go on, Cav.
Yeah, look, I have to go with Swiatek getting at Wimbledon, losing to Cornet, because I think going into that, everyone was talking. The hype behind Swiatek winning that Wimbledon, it was given to her. She didn't play any matches leading up. I get it, but she was on the streak. We didn't know who was going to beat her, and we didn't think it would be. Cornet is good, and she does cause upsets. I think she beat Halep at the Australian Open, which. Was it maybe at the Australian Open this year, and that was kind of a bit of a shock as well. So she's prone to an upset. But we're all looking at the big hitters. We're going, okay, well, who's going to push Swiatek off the court? But Swiatek just straight sets, straightforward, broke the streak. It was not really much of a contest, which was really shocking to me. So that's my upset of the year. So good luck picking the 4.
Swiatek Cornet. That's one.
There we go.
Yeah. I went for this as well. But the Halep.
I like the other two. The other, I watched Lynette beating Jabeur, massive.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And then I watched Halep as well, losing as well, which was again a massive shock. It was it's tough.
Yeah, talking on Simona Halep and outrageous WTA most outrageous moment. I don't know whether that might feature, but. Stephen, do you want to go? Do you want to go first? Because I know you need to leave anyway. So me, Gill, and Cam will wrap up the rest.
Yeah, no, and I'm disappointed. Sorry, I do have to run. I have a previous commitment, but my most outrageous moment. There's a lot to pick from. The Rybakina disrespect post Wimbledon championship. Obviously, to me, very vocal about it. Poor decision by Wimbledon to not have points, and then she's the rightful Wimbledon champion. Or to not poor decision by Wimbledon to not have the Russians, and then bad. The points was kind of that was actually a good decision. So I totally got that bungled in my opinion. But Wimbledon blew it. But she won Wimbledon, and I felt like for the rest of the year, because her ranking wasn't as high as it should have been. She was always on outer courts, even at small tournaments. I basically never saw her play another match, which is crazy to think about. And I think that honestly, knowing tennis players, that would affect your performance. So that was outrageous to me. I do have 5 more answers, but I can just leave them with you guys.
Run.
Do you want me to just run them off?
Yeah. Just
go on.
Thank you. Give me the here. I'll just prime you guys up for a little argument. You can trash me while I'm gone. I'm just trying to go through these. Okay, funniest moment. of the year. Oops, I missed that. I didn't have a funny moment. Oh wait, no, I did. Raducanu swearing. I think her friend like joked her into like swearing in Chinese or something. What was it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Italian, yeah.
Or Italian, some language,
yeah.
and that was pretty funny. Everyone, that was just funny. I don't know. That was the only funny moment. Or Ostapenko's outfits. That was also outrageous and funny. Most improved player, Caroline Garcia, pretty legendary. I think she was like 67 or something in May, ranked 67 up to whatever she finished as, and won the WTA finals. Most disappointing player of the year for me was Raducanu. Could have given it to a lot of players, but just like by as far as like she won the US Open, then she ended up the season like 60th or something. That's like pretty obviously it was going to happen with her points not being defended. To me, that's disappointing though. I wanted her to be a big star, like not just for like her name and fame. I wanted her to be like battling in these big moments, and she kind of wasn't all year. Gill, I know Gill wants to argue with that, which I want to hear quickly.
No, I'm sorry. I was just checking. It turns out Garcia was not nominated for Most Improved Player by the WTA. And I just don't understand that. I don't get that at all.
That is scandalous. Another scandal on the WTA.
So that distracted me.
Go on, Stephen. Wrap up with, was it a young player and best player? Go on.
Yeah, young player of the year, Coco Gauff. Great year. She's still 18 years old. That just blows my mind. I was looking at the ages on the rankings. Has to be young player of the year. Also, Swiatek's a young player of the year too. But she is my WTA female player of the year. Obviously, Swiatek is. If any of you guys say elsewise in my absence, I will have a problem with it when I watch back, and I will contact you personally.
Can't wait to disagree with it.
Don't start. Okay, thanks you for having me. Sorry I have to run. Love Quality Shot. Thanks for having me on, and we'll all talk again soon.
See you later, Stephen. Thank you.
See you, Stephen.
See you, mate.
Cool. So we've got most outrageous moment, which Stephen's given us a few. I put the empty stadiums in Texas for the WTA finals. I thought that was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. And I know it's in Texas, and I know it's a football state, and it's tennis isn't massive there.
No, it's not.
But
Texas isn't the problem. Let me be the resident America expert. Tennis, no, it's Fort Worth. Fort Worth is the problem. You could have a tournament in Austin or Dallas or Houston or San Antonio. Like, these are larger cities with professional sports teams that they support. I mean, Fort Worth, my God, it's a Fort Worth problem.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, it was kind of predictable that was going to happen. And unfortunate, but it was like, yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to get.
Do you think they didn't advertise it well enough as well? Maybe I didn't think it was great. I saw some of the bits that WTA did, and I thought that was quite cool. Like the interviews and stuff, and Jabeur scaring them with that was quite cool. Fine, but I didn't really feel the push. Like last year, I was in Guadalajara, and it was so vibrant. I felt like it was really cool. Then in Fort Worth, it was like, I don't know, it just kind of dulled down a bit for me. I don't know.
Right, but in terms of the attendance at the venue itself, like I think if you weren't living in Fort Worth, you can't really talk about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I know that everybody on the internet had an opinion about the promotion of it, and that being the problem. It's like, well, how do you know? Like, you weren't there. They didn't get people to, fly to Fort Worth. And by the way, that's another part of it. Hold tennis events in tourism destinations, and people might want to actually take a trip. Yeah. But nobody wants to go to Fort Worth. I mean,
what's there to do, Gill, there?
And look, I'm not saying I visited. What's there to do? There's actually a stockyards where you can see cattle march through the street. Live cattle. Okay. You can buy
epic
cowboy hats and boots, little shops.
Okay, so not much.
What I could do here? Like I could drive 3 hours away from Melbourne and do the same thing.
Go buy Woody's little cowboy hat from Toy Story. Cam, what's it? WTA most outrageous moment?
I got two, and I'll pick one. I promise. The Swiatek streak being outrageous, just for the in a good way. From where she was at the start of the year, Barty, retired, and then she just took over. And I don't think, maybe some of us thought that she would, but not like that. And she kind of, did things that we haven't seen done, not in my lifetime anyway, with that kind of streak. But I mean, the Halep situation that's happened recently. I think it's hard to pick that now because we don't know the full. Like we don't know. We know enough, but we don't know the outcome yet. So maybe that'll filter into next year. Apparently, she's not on the list for the Australian Open entry list. So whatever that means. Yeah, so I'll go with the Swiatek streak in a positive way, but yeah, you're right with the attendance. That was strange, but also after what Gill just said, maybe not.
Very optimistic, Cam. Gill, what's yours?
I just felt like on the WTA side, even more than the men's side, the hypocrisy of the Wimbledon decision was really on display with Rybak, obviously winning it, a player who's born in Moscow, a player like Samsonova not being able to play Wimbledon. And by the way, she's got some game on grass. And, she spent her whole life in Italy. She happens to represent Russia, but like she's Italian in terms of what language she speaks, in terms of where she's lived. So, it just goes to expose those inconsistencies. So I would pick that. Yeah,
that's a good point. And I guess not talking about where they're based, but Sabalenka from Belarus or Belarus even. I can get it right. She would have been a force to be reckoned with on the grass. So that was a massive shame. And of course, so many good players missed out on the WTA side, especially. I thought, on the ATP side, definitely, we know as well. But there's so many. Like there's like incredible amount on the WTA side that would have competed. So that they were big misses. WTA funniest moment of the year. Cam, do you want to go first?
The outfits of Ostapenko is the only thing I could think of. I mean, it was just funny to watch Twitter. Even now, it's going to be funny next year because it's going to keep going because she's not going to sign with a brand. So yeah, she's going like, look. So I just love the response. I wear the same thing every day, so who am I to say it's good or bad? But it's just funny when people are just like, what is she wearing? And what are the frills? And what is the colors? And all the photos and the memes. It's just hilarious.
Yeah. Very hilarious. That's my pick. I was happy to jump on that Twitter bandwagon when I was like, at Tennis Channel early in the morning, I believe calling doubles. And I saw one that, hadn't really been out there. And I was able to take a picture, tweet it out, did quite well. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, they're very exuberant outfits, but the fair play. I mean, I wonder how distracting it is for opponents, some of them. Obviously not distracting enough. She had some good results, maybe not as good results.
Not as distracting as what she does when you're trying to serve with the squeaky feet.
Squeaky feet. Do you think how does she make her shoes so squeaky? That's the question. I need to find out. So I put my WTA funniest moment of the year. That was one of them. But also Sabalenka. I think it's at the Australian Open. After winning, she was like, "Oh, you know what? That was a really good game. I only made 10 double faults." And like for her, that's great. Like for her, that's like fantastic. And to fair play to her, she always. Like she knows that loads of people comment at double faults, so she always kind of just like jokes about it. And she seems like she's quite a good laugh. So, that was quite funny. She just plays into it. But yeah, Ostapenko's outfits, I think, is the winner there. WTA most improved player. There's quite a few here. I feel I'm going to quickly just run through mine. Obviously, Steven mentioned Caroline Garcia, which is a great shout. I've got a couple here, I guess, would maybe fall into like a comeback of the year. We don't have it, which is Kvitova and Keys. They obviously made like big strides back towards the top of the game, but also Haddad Maia. I thought she improved a lot this year, and then shout out to maybe someone like Pegula as well, who I know she's had a steady rise, but I feel like this year was a lot better than some of the previous ones. She's now, I think, number 3 in the world, so some great strides there. Gill, who is your most improved player?
Well, first of all, I want to shout out Alex Gruskin because I know this has been his viewpoint on this. I think Iga needs to be in the conversation. I mean, similar to what Carlos Alcaraz did. She made that jump to being the unequivocal best in the world from, just another kind of top tenor, I would say. And I mean, and there were some signs in 2021 that she was on a great track, but no one was predicting this. So I think Iga's very much in the conversation. If you're not disqualifying Caroline Garcia for at one point getting to number 4 in the world, I don't know if that's why the WTA didn't nominate her. If you're not disqualifying her for that, then I would say Garcia in the traditional sense is the best option for this.
Yeah. No, and I agree on the Swiatek point. I think you made a really good point, and so does Alex Groskin as well. Shout out to him about the way that she revolutionized her game as well, like the forehand, like the way that she's like the racket speed, how hard she was hitting it. Then we know how solid as well the backhand is, but the return of serve, the kick serve on the second serve, there's still some work to be done on the first serve, but the serve and 1+ play was like taken to another level. And I know a coach was talking about on the forehand, flattening it out and taking inspiration from some of the ATP players in terms of racket head speed and how to make it into more of a weapon and really hurt people with it. And she has different looks on it now as well, which is really interesting. So that's a really good point. She's definitely in the conversation if we talk about just generally improvements to someone's game. Like she's made huge strides. And as you said, she is by far the number 1 now in the field. But Caroline Garcia, incredible season as well, as you mentioned. And I love her game. It's so exciting. And how can you not love her game? The way that she wants to attack the serve. She stands so far inside the baseline. She wants to come to the net. She's just so all round. She's a great all-quarter as well. So hoping that she continues to succeed next year as well. Cam, who's your pick?
Yeah, it's interesting because like here in her, I picked Garcia, which is weird that she's not even, maybe she's not eligible. But yeah, it's kind of like the whole Runa Alcaraz. Is it ranking or is it achievement? I mean, Swiatek, but then Barty retiring. So many people want Barty to come back just to see what Swiatek could do against her because Swiatek didn't do anything against her before this version. I'll go with Garcia just because she beat Swiatek along the way. I know Swiatek got revenge, but then winning the WTA finals, maybe it's recency. But I'll go with Garcia, my first pick. But yeah, Swiatek, I mean, she went from, maybe she didn't go from 20 to 1, but she went from, top 10 to number 1, but then number 1 by a mile.
Like dominant,
Yeah, it wasn't, she's, Alcaraz was just better than Rafa. Swiatek was miles better than Jabeur and everybody else.
I think at one point she had double the amount of points than Jabeur at one point in the year. It was ridiculous.
So I'll go Garcia, but I could definitely see Swiatek. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah,
well.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm happy to go with Caroline Garcia in the traditional sense, as Gill would say. But yeah, massive shout out to Swiatek as well. Most disappointing player of the year. There are a lot that I've got on this list, and that's just because it's just
really there's a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a lot. They're just always banding about. So I'll go through mine quickly. Actually, do I have a lot? Well, I picked 2 major ones actually. I was going to make it a long list actually, but in the end I haven't. So I've gone Krejcikova, which I know that she beat Swiatek on Ostrava, but if you look at the whole year as a whole, I know she was injured for some of it, but I think if you think about last year when she won Roland Garros, and then she made the WTA finals last year as well, so she obviously had a good year. This year, I mean, it's just been all over the place. I think it's been more disappointing for the fact that she hasn't played as much tennis as I would have liked, and some of that is down to the fact that she's been injured. Some of it is down to I know she just didn't want to play at times. She's had success in the doubles, so fair play to her, and that's incredible. And we know how good a player she is, not just in singles but doubles as well. But I'm more focusing on the singles side, and that haven't really seen what I was hoping she was going to kick on. I feel like she's quite a complete all rounder, and in terms of services as well. But Paula Badosa is my other one. She had a pretty good 2021, ended the year really well. I was thinking she's going to kick on. And I think she's plummeted down the rankings now. And actually, what am I talking about? Another Spanish player, sorry, Spain, Muguruza, has to be in the conversation.
They just lost the World Cup, and now you're just going to pile on.
Yeah, exactly. But she was what? She was top 10. She won the WTA final. She's now top. She's now like 57 in the world at the end of the year, like because she's lost so many points. It's ridiculous. But yeah, those are my three. Gill, do you want to go?
Yeah, it was Muguruza for me, no doubt about it. Because like the way she ended 2021, winning in Guadalajara, it felt like something clicked with her. Like it really did look different. And I think the biggest thing was she looked really, really happy and loose and like she was having fun. And she had a new coach, Conchita Martinez. So I was literally like, oh wow, there it is. It clicked. Like this partnership, it's going to be magical. Muguruza is going to, start to just loosen up and enjoy herself more. And she's going to do what she's capable of, which is, be a top 3 player in the world, which she has been many times. She also won Chicago at the end of 2021. And then as soon as this season started, like right away, it was like, uh-oh, this doesn't look very good. And yeah, it ended up being really, really bad. I mean, Badosa had highlights, right? Badosa, Indian Wells was a huge highlight. Actually, really just the first 3 months of the season were pretty good for Badosa. Muguruza had no highlights.
That's true. And it's the Australian Open. Well, who did she play when it was really tight and she lost? Oh, I've forgotten who it was. Was it Osaka?
I can look.
But it was a really tight match, and I feel like that almost like she wins that match, and
not in Australia,
crazy.
not at the Australian Open.
Okay,
no, she lost 6-3, 6-3 to Cornet.
Oh, I might be thinking of last, but yeah, I mean, it's been a really weird season for sure. So I can see why you picked, and it's been strangely disappointing. It'll be interesting to see now, given her ranking, how she's going to get on next year, whether she does claw her way back, because she could technically not be seeded for the Australian Open. She's at 57, so unless she plays a couple of tournaments beforehand and gains some points, it's going to be really difficult. I don't know what's going to happen there. So
she's got no chance to be seeded.
Yeah, so just go to the qualifiers. Will she get a wild card? We'll see. Don't know. Cam?
Yeah, I went Muguruza. Maybe it's because I'm a bit salty that I picked her to win slams and maybe I put some money on it. But like, she looked so good at the end of last year. And she had made, I think maybe the start of 2021, she'd had a really good start. She then finished off the year really strong. She had an okay US Open. I think she maybe made a 4th round quarterfinal last year. And then this year, it's just like, I don't even know if I don't know what her best win would be or anything. Like, just completely disappeared. Now, I do have to mention Raducanu, but I think we were all expecting that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not at the very start of the year. Once she lost to Rybakina in straight sets at the start of the year, I think everyone went, okay, maybe Raducanu's not going to have a great year. But Muguruza, we were not expecting that. And even like a few tournaments, and you go, okay, well, she's just warming up. She's just getting better. She'll get there. And she just never got there. It was crazy. And till the end of the year when you're like, and then she finally lost all those points and you're like, okay, she had a terrible year. But
there you go, yeah.
It was, Muguruza for sure.
Well, the Raducanu was interesting because like she didn't start particularly well. She got a couple of wins and then she kind of like crept into the top 10 because obviously she hadn't played any of those tournaments, right? Because last year she only played like half a year. So the first half of the year she was gaining all these points from just winning like a few matches here or there. And then she broke into the top 10. You're like, what's going on? But she wasn't playing particularly well. And then it was only when you got towards the US Open where she obviously had points to defend and then she dropped and then you saw it happen. But I wasn't surprised. I was saying to everyone, I'd be so surprised if she goes deep in any tournament. It's her first full season. I get the whole coaching situation. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about it. I mean, I get she's trying to change coaches. The amount of coaches she's gone through is probably more alarming. If she's gone through a couple, I get they might only last 6 months, but I think it's the fact she's gone through, I think it was like 5 coaches this year, 4 or 5, which is crazy. The amount she's gone through, but we'll see. I mean, she's still so young, so who knows what's going to go on with her. And I think a pattern in the women's game has been when a player wins their first slam, it normally takes them a couple of years to then really find their groove and consistency across the whole tour as a whole. Like with Swiatek, I mean, I guess she won it very young as well, and now we see her a few years later, and she's now dominating. Not saying Raducanu's going to do that, but that's I guess an example of someone. But then we've also seen people like Sophia Kenin won a Grand Slam, and now she's kind of in the wilderness, and she's trying to find her way back. So it could go. I guess those are the two extremes, maybe, but we'll see. We'll see. WTA Young Player of the Year. I know Steven said Coco Gauff. I've got here Anisimova and Zheng Xinwen as well from China. I thought she's been very, very good this year. Gil, I know you're a massive fan of her as well, but who have you gone for?
It's tough between Zheng Xinwen and Gauff because, Gauff has been, she could have won this award already multiple times. So for that reason, I do think it's more Zheng Xinwen, who's really the prospect to emerge this year, who I was most impressed with. Her game is just absolutely massive. She's not going to get overpowered by anyone. I really like the way she produces her forehand. I think it has a chance to be one of the best shots in the game. She's got the height to have an elite serve. So, and then she pushed Iga. She took a set off of Iga at Roland Garros. That was a good moment in a losing effort. And, she had plenty of winning efforts as well throughout the year.
Yeah. Cam?
Yeah. No, they're my two as well. Gauff's tough because I think Stephen was saying before, Gauff's been around forever. So she could have won this in 2019, 2020, 2021. This year, making a final of a slam, career high ranking, top 10 finally. But Zheng Xinwen is, I'm very bullish on her as well.
No, you all are.
Like I will pick her because I feel like Gauff's Gauff won this in 2019. So I mean, it's hard. Gauff should be 22. That's what we're all been around for so long. But whereas Zheng Xinwen, came from nowhere. I think she might have taken. Did she play Swiatek twice this year or just the once? I know she definitely took a set off her at the French, which was at the time and then after that, fell apart, but was definitely really, really strong there. Did she win Tokyo at the end of?
Yes.
She made the final.
Made the final.
Beat a bunch of good players along the way. I'm really excited for her next year as well. But yeah, exactly what Gill was saying. She's got all the attributes of someone and the mentality of someone that could definitely be top 10 this time next year. And then she won't be qualified for this category. So yeah, why not give it to her?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, she's so exciting. I've talked to Gill about it before, and I can tell all three of us are very high on her. So the chosen one. So maybe she'll make the
queen. The queen.
The force is with her. So we'll see how she does next year. But I imagine, if I had to predict now, that she'll have a breakthrough year next year of some sort. But yeah, don't hold me to it. Don't hold Cam to it either, because he chose Muguruza to win slams, and we saw how that happened. So anything can happen in tennis is the conclusion. All right, WTA Best Player of the Year, which is probably the easiest category that we've had today. Cam, do you want to go first?
Yep, Swiatek. I don't think anyone needs to know why. 2 slams, massive streak, 2 times more, twice as many points a second. Beat everyone in the top 10. Had a poor end to the year, but again, she lost to someone who's a big hitter. But yeah, I think Swiatek. And she made the Australian Open semi, which I think people forget as well.
She did
at the start of the year. So yeah, it's eager.
Yeah, by far and away, 88% win percentage.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
67-9. It doesn't get better than that. Those are your, elite seasons that, actually maybe even more than elite. Those are your historical seasons. And, Iga 8 titles. Yeah, I mean, the only, 2 slams, we've seen that before, I guess. Maybe let's see. I guess that's the interesting thing going forward. Where is the upward progress for her? Can she win more than 2 in a season? Which is really, really hard to do. But she basically did everything that you can do other than that in 2022.
Yeah, agreed. A phenomenal year from Iga Swiatek, and you mentioned about how she's improved and she's taken her game to the next level. The biggest thing for me about her going forward is I think she will succeed at Australian Open. She'll win one at some point, whether it's next year or whenever. It's going to be the grass and how she moves on the grass. How is she able to find something that works for her in terms of movement, in terms of adapting her game, and is she going to play as well some tournaments before Wimbledon to adapt? Because it's clearly, I know she's a junior woman champion there, if I'm not mistaken, but I feel like it's very different. When it comes to the senior level, we've seen a lot of people win junior titles on the ATP and WTA sides and not being able to translate that going forward into the main tour, even. But we'll see. I mean, she's got all the attributes to do it. As we have mentioned, she's improving her game drastically. She's starting to come to the net more, which is really, I mean, I think it's worrying for everyone else because the more she adds to a game and the more effective she becomes and the more layers she has and more tools she has in the tool bag, it's going to be extremely tough to beat her, and she will come up with different fixes to problems that are presented to her. So it's ominous for the rest of the field, but also exciting to see who's able to step up and actually challenge her. So, someone like a Caroline Garcia and a Jabeur and Coco Gauff now coming through. She's younger. Zheng Shen, we mentioned that they're coming. They're coming in. Sabalenka as well, as Cam rightfully said. I think she's not going to have the mental struggles that she had last year as much. Hopefully, with obviously everything going on outside of tennis, and she's found a bit of form. So she brings that kind of Serena-esque type of tennis that maybe we don't see as much nowadays. And Serena's obviously retired, so I feel like she's kind of someone who can replicate that type of tennis. So it's going to be exciting. But yeah, Swiatek wins WTA Best Player of the Year, and I'm sure she's watching and very, as Rafa is, very proud of this achievement and probably the best achievement of the year for her. Not the 88% win percentage or the 2 slams. But yeah.
Hopefully they're watching together.
Well, exactly. Yeah, probably after playing doubles.
Yeah,
exactly. No, thank you both. Really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, Gill, I know you're not going to answer this question, I know, but I wanted to ask you about the 2023 Grand Slam predictions. Gill, are you going to give me some answers so you can explain why?
Are you asking me why I won't answer this question?
Yes.
So basically, there's one. I'm accused of bias all the time.
Okay.
I hate all the big three. I'm a fanboy of all the big three, right? All of us have experienced this, and all of it is mostly BS. But one thing is true, which is that my previous picks will bias me. Like I will have a bias towards keeping my pick and sticking to my guns. And
okay.
I actually just don't want that going into a major. So I'm asked this all the time, like before the year, who's going to win the 4 slams? I never pick it. Because I genuinely do not want to have a previous pick when the draw comes out and it's time to predict the major. I'd rather not have it. So that's where I stand on it.
Okay. That I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, for me, I don't have that problem. I'll just change my answer. I'm like, yeah, forget about what I said in the past. I don't care. That was like 2 months ago. Cam, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I bought a video at end of last year. Predicting the slams, just because sometimes you look like a genius and most times you look like a fool. Like I picked Sabalenka to win Wimbledon. I think I picked Djokovic to win the Australian. So like
both couldn't compete. Well, that's not your fault, really. To be fair.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, is there an asterisk? Yeah. To be honest, I haven't really given it much thought.
Neither have I. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I wanted to get kind of raw opinion.
I'll say this though. I think Djokovic is going to get a slam. I think Rafa's going to get a slam. Pick whichever one you want. I feel like Medvedev will have a comeback and win a slam. And then there's one left for somebody else. Maybe a new champion there. And then on the women's side, Swiatek's going to get one. Jeez.
There will probably be a new one then if it's... There's going to be somebody...
She'll get two.
Okay.
She'll get 2. And then for the other 2, man, I don't know. Does Gauff take the next step? Does Sabalenka figure it out? Does Pegula. I don't know. I can't see Pegula winning a slam.
Jabbar
Unfortunately.
Garcia.
Somebody said Zachary might do something.
I don't feel like
Jabber's got it.
Yeah,
Jabber's the one. She's got to win one.
Jabbar or Caroline Garcia. Yeah, I think with Zachary, sorry, even I can't see her being that consistent for 2 weeks. I think she really struggles to keep up the intensity for 2 weeks.
There's going to be someone outside the top 20 though. I think we've got every year. There's always someone who we don't think of the start of the year, and it's like, oh, that person.
Zheng Xin,
maybe
Anisimova.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm looking outside the top 20. I hear the names that jump out. Anisimova. Maybe. I don't know that I see it.
On the grass, maybe I was thinking. I feel like Wimbledon can always be quite random as well. We had Rybakina this year. Who was it last year? Well, Barty wasn't
Barty
random,
last year.
But,
Yeah.
So they're my kind of picks. I guess you're gonna have to watch the video at the end of the year to figure out who I actually picked. But...
Oh, there we go. Like the little shout out.
And I'm sure I'll get none of them right, but it's always good fun to watch back.
Yeah, fine. Okay, I won't give mine then as well. You guys have to wait for my videos.
I Steven didn't give his, unfortunately, but maybe he can comment down below if he's watching later. Watching the rest
Steven,
of it later.
Yeah, exactly. Steven, you can comment on the video. Exactly. Is there anything you guys want to touch on before we wrap up? Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know, as always, it's a pleasure to have both you guys on, and I'm glad to bring us all together from different parts of the world to talk tennis.
No, thanks for doing this. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, Cam. It was great to share some airwaves with you. You do awesome work on your channel that I've certainly admired. And Faizan, you already know that I feel the same way.
Oh, so kind
of
you.
Likewise, mate. Likewise. No, it's been great. It's the OGs of tennis YouTube, you and Steven. So it's awesome to finally get the time zones all aligned. For a couple of hours. So it's been awesome. And I know people have been hounding me to get on a call with you or Steven or Farzan. We've been here a couple of times, but I mean, it's awesome to finally all give the fans what they want.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Exactly. That's what it's about. Now, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, do check out, which I'm sure all of you are already subscribers to, but Gill, there's Gill Gross on YouTube, and you can see also his Twitter handle as well, Gill_Gross. Cam, of course, at Tennis Talk with Cam Williams on YouTube, and he's also on Twitter as well, Tennis Talk and Discord and all sorts. I know Gill's also on some other different socials. And if you haven't done so already, do like this video, subscribe to the channel as well. Guys, I'll link your channels in the description and see what I can do with the title. There's 3 of our channels, so I'll see how many I can fit in there. Just in the title, it'll be interesting to deal with that. That'll be fun. But thank you guys, really appreciate it. And yeah, that's our 2022 wrapped up. Looking forward to 2023. Thank you very much.